Maharashtra, but I think the real kind of presentations on several states are starting now in this session, which I presume will continue in the next session as well. We have 5 presentations in relation to 5 different states. I don't know which of them are star states and which are non-star states. And some categorization was made earlier. Time-wise, I am a little clearer now because the original program that I received said from 2 to 4. And then in this it says from 2 o'clock, from 2 to 4:30 a.m. But I am relieved now because I have finally been given another sheet which says 2 to 4:30 p.m. I presume that's the latest and the correct version of the program. So we will have within 20 minutes of each of the presentation. And then we will see as to how much time is left for discussion. May I ask first Janmejaya Mishra?
Yes, sir.
To make his presentation on Madhya Pradesh. This is the AKRSP experience. Okay, please. Mishra.
Okay, good afternoon. At the outset, I would like to thank IGRDL for giving us the opportunity to present our work. This is a very brief presentation of our work in grassroots work in implementing NREGA in Madhya Pradesh. Beginning, I'll just brief little outline on what AKRSP is and what AKRSP does, and what is the role of civil society in NREGA, then AKRSP's approach in implementing NREGA, interventions that AKRSP did under NREGA, initial outcomes, and I won't conclude, rather I would have some points on lessons learned that we. Well, AKRSP stands for the Aga Khan Rural Support Program India. It is a development organization that has been founded by His Highness the Aga Khan in 1983. It is under the umbrella organizations called AKDN, that's again Aga Khan Development Network, based in Geneva. AKRSP from the beginning, since 1983-84 onwards, has been in Gujarat. In 2004-2005 onwards we were in Madhya Pradesh, and recently we were in Bihar. AKRSP work in livelihood enhancement of rural communities, including these marginalized sections in all of these 3 states, mostly based on natural resource management based interventions. Coming to AKRSP's coverage and context, as I mentioned that we work in 3 states. Gujarat we started in 1984-85 onwards. We were in MP in 2004-2005 and in Bihar recently. So you see there are 3 different states. Again in Gujarat there are 3 different locations we work, but our major focus is on NREGA. There is an MP. MP we work in the Nimad region, that's bordering to western Gujarat and northern Maharashtra. Well, I know that I won't talk much on what NREGA is all about, but I would focus there is a role of civil society in NREGA. While NREGA was being formulated, there was during the initial time there was very little scope of civil society organizations getting into NREGA. It was basically more on awareness building, then planning of livelihood activities and all. Little grassroots work facilitations, then participatory monitoring of work on social audit part of thing. But later on, as the program involved, later on, while we were debating NREGA in national context, way back in 2007, MP is one of these pioneer states. In fact, I have not much idea whether there are NGOs work in Andhra Pradesh, but rather in MP, that GOMP from the beginning, 2007, 2006 onwards, they have been involved in NREGA, civil society organizations, not only to build awareness, but also to give a lot of work on grassroots implementation at village level. And we are fortunate that AKRSP was one of these few NGOs that got involved in NREGA implementation in Madhya Pradesh. I mean, we do directly implement NREGA as well as we do facilitate with PRIs there in western Madhya Pradesh, particularly in Badwani and Dhar to some extent, on facilitating NREGA. You could ask me that you know that the government does good work on NRGA, but what AKRSP does on NRGA is a little different work. There are set of approaches that we do get into NRGA. It is a cluster approach. We don't work in scattered way. We have the cluster of villages, say 15-20 villages, get in, then we work there. And in fact, most of the villages, almost 100% of the villages that we work, they are tribal, and basically tribal villages. Almost 99% of the population are tribal from tribal communities. Then we have a multidisciplinary team, and when somebody talks about NRGA, most of these things that comes into that, it is the work of engineers who would get into NRGA and all, but it's not that AKRSP didn't take in that way. Rather, we see that there is a scope of getting a lot of social sciences, social work fellows, having background in social mobilization. Then engineering, of course, they are there, but not, at the same time there are people from agriculture, forestry background who our team consists of. Initially, while we were in the initial stage in 2007, 2005, say, we had a lot of difficulties into starting our work. While initial work was on process part that we generally call. It was participatory planning, most upon doing the DPR things. That's called detailed project report or self of project. Then developing the awareness of communities on on NRGA work. Then a lot of training and capacity building work of AKRSP goes into not of this particularly on the staff. At the same time, there are village level volunteers called para worker who support us for their work. Then of course implementation comes next. Once the process was over, it was more on a lot of watershed activities that AKRSP did take, and it was not from AKRSP's point of view, but as I mentioned that NRGA in MP has been seen in a different perspective, rather having a mere wage earning kind of program. Rather, MP government saw it other way, that they could convert a lot of watershed work into NRGA. So that's how the entire AKRSP's work has been. We identified a lot of arrangements, in particular to the institutional settings. They are watershed committees who work in village level. There are PRIs, Gram Sabhas, Gram Panchayat who implement NRGA in Badwani, say 2 blocks. As well as a lot of work, and as I mentioned that soil water conservation, water harvesting, forestry on common lands, check dams or earthen dams that you mentioned on these durable assets. Well, you could see that these are the work that we have been able to do in almost for 6 years or so. There has been almost 1,000 of hectares, 2,000 of hectares of activities under soil and water conservation. Almost 24 check dams have been done, and almost those check dams per unit cost it comes around 2 to 3 lakhs of rupees for a check dam. Almost 24 check dams have been done. Farm ponds we have done. Population tanks also. There are a lot of boribunds. Boribunds are very temporary structures that will come into some of these photographs. As well as a lot of work has been done in wasteland and forestry. Coming to the financial aspect, that as I mentioned, there are 4 districts we work in NRGA. One is Khargone, the other one is Khandwa, Badwani, there is Burhanpur, and the blocks that we work are Chirnia in Khargone, Pandana in Khandwa, Niwali, Rajpur in Badwani, as well as Khaknar in Burhanpur. So there are, it's of last year there are 52 districts. As on we go on expanding, there are more work coming from government. As of today, I mean this data is till December 2013. We have been able to spend almost 4 crore of rupees in NRGA implementation. That has been, I mean, as you know, that 60% of the entire spending is on labor, and 40% of this the spending is on assets creation, particular material. So we have been able to generate almost 2.71 lakhs of mandates there in all these 4 districts, about almost 5 years. This is one of this critical work that NRGA needs. I mean, and people from MORD or people from having bureaucratic background, they would require. They would understand that NRGA it was in present context. In fact, it is in NRGA 2 now. So it was in the previous NRGA version 1. There was not much scope of doing all of agriculture work. I mean, there are assumptions that NRGA would all this work, that previous slide that show that this work would lead to productivity in wage labor as well as agriculture productivity and all. But our experience is that it is not. At the same time, while you are doing all this in watershed work and all, at the same time you need to do a lot of the work activities in agriculture, activities in these are the activities that we call it NRGA plus activities. So NREGA at present doesn't fund for these activities. These fundings come from a variety of funding sources. Like we have been very fortunate to have fundings from Tata Trust, both Sir Ratan Tata, Sir Dorothy Tata Trust, as well as we have fundings from World Bank for a small project. We have fundings from European Commission. So those fundings coming to NREGA projects. So that's how we have been able to do all this work. I mean, we have a lot of asset work as well as agriculture extension work that we have been able to do. And as I mentioned that these are few photographs. I thought that it would be capturing, and not only capturing your eyes, but would actually let you know to exactly how did we do all things there, and the entire setup as I started. That these are awareness generation activities that we took on initially. Then on-field trainings, in fact, we did. Then these are some of the photographs of soil and water conservation work that we did in those patches. Again, some assets that being done. These are work that we did under common property sources. You have contour trenches in the down. You have forestry work. You have nala plugs, gabions, and to check this runoff. And forestry work, of course. This is particularly, Badwani probably, as I mentioned sometimes back to John, that he has been to Badwani for long. And these are the work that we do in Badwani. Badwani, if somebody happened to be there, that Badwani is one of this, most poorest district in not only in MP but also in India. So we could, able to do this kind of work in Badwani. Coming to water resources, all these durable assets that we have been discussing for long, that this kind of work that we did under NREGA. You have farm ponds or earthen dams, as well as we have a lot of check dams, as I mentioned. I mean, with NREGA fund we could do 24 check dams, but we have fundings from European Commission and all. We did almost on those particular areas we have 100 plus check dams there in those areas. And I mentioned that Borigon is a very low cost structure. That is a temporary structure that we could do. It hardly cost around 1,000 rupees, 1 to 2,000 rupees. But at the same time, it gets a lot of water to be irrigated the nearby field. Again, coming to those photographs, that these are the assets that we have been able to generate. In order to coming to this slide on impacts, particularly on initial outcomes, in order to assess the impact of NREGA on tribal migration there in this particular area, we had a small study done in 2011. Our sample size was almost 166 households in that 6 villages. That shows that before NREGA, around 88% of the total population in these 6 villages were migrating, whereas once our interventions were over, almost that has been gone down to 33%. I mean, we don't claim that their migration completely checked, but nonetheless, that work that we did, that has reduced migration to a certain extent, I mean, to a considerable extent. Not only in terms of percentage of household that they have reduced, as well as this right figure shows you that number of days the migrants spent in working outside was almost 194. It's almost 200 days for year before NREGA, and once NREGA was being implemented there, that has been reduced to 75% days in a year. Apart from impact on migration, we had built those long-term assets that I mentioned in the earlier slides. That has been able to do all this likely impact on crop productivity. That the earthen dams or population tanks that we have built there, that has almost brought almost 1,000 hectares of area, additional area into irrigation. Almost 228 hectares of land has been irrigated through check dams. Then construction of Borigon also have benefited almost close to 1,000 households. As I mentioned that these are the households who were in their entire lifetime never seen irrigation. I mean, they were purely rain-fed farmers. They had never seen irrigation. They have never seen an asset like check dams or dog well. Once NREGA was there, that has enabled them to converted from irrigated to rain-fed farmers. I mean, rain-fed to irrigated farmers. And there are a lot of examples that once irrigation is done, there has been a very favorable change in the cropping pattern. There are lots of people who initially were dependent on monsoon for agriculture, they have been able to grow vegetables now. And of course, that once vegetables, and since MP is one of the states that produce a lot of wheat in India. I suppose that is largest after Punjab and Haryana. That's the third largest producer of wheat in country. So almost our irrigation has been to get into this irrigation of wheat crop in those particular land. I'll briefly touching upon the other tangible impacts that the intervention resulted. As I mentioned, that almost 60% has been given to those who demand work there. And if you see that national average, somebody was telling that it was around 40 to 50 days. But I could claim that we have data sets there. You could very well check in to our data sets that we make valid claims that there are almost 55 to 60% days has been generated. At the same time, there are almost 6 to 7,000 of additional income has been given to household due to this NREJ wage labor. And though these figures I am telling you based on our figures on before 2011, and if you see, if you calculate this additional wages that this wage rate that has been recently hiked. I started calculating it while it was in 100 rupees per day, but now it is almost 150 and all. If you calculate, it would be around somewhere around 8,000 to 9,000 at present kind of thing. And our work has resulted in 70% of decrease in distress labor migration. Some of our work has been there on areas of social audit, where we don't, as a typical activist NGO, we don't do social audit of other projects. Rather, we involve PRIs. Rather, we involve members of self-help groups to get into the works, check these vouchers and bills, and do maintain transparency in that.
Does this relate to your program area? Or?
Absolutely. No, this is what I'm telling, that we don't, as a typical NGO like MKSS or some others, we don't do social audit for other works, the work that has been done for government. This is what we have maintained the social audit as a tool to maintain transparency in our project, while inviting PRIs, while inviting SHG members to get in and to check all these things. I would conclude with this slide, rather having a conclusion of what we did. There are great scope. Somebody was presenting that what are the potential scope of NREJ. In fact, our work that has been demonstrated in MP, that you could see very well, that has given to all these results that I mentioned. And if you could fully potential, you could realize the potential of NREJ. That can't be simply seen as a mere wage earning scheme. You need to motivate people by saying that these are the work that would lead to your better livelihood options, rather giving you a temporary kind of relief on this. Then there are people, you must be knowing that like Mihir Saha, Deep Joshi, who represent civil society in India in government forums like Planning Commission as well as in NAC, who demand for a greater role of civil society engagement in NREJ implementation. I suppose due to their role that now in NREJ version 2 that there is a greater role of civil society getting into NREJ. Then as I mentioned, that a lot of people would complain that the biggest questions in NREGA is to have generation of awareness. Awareness generation doesn't happen automatically. You can't keep on telling that people are not aware. You can't keep on complaining at the same time. And what you could do at best is to do a lot of training, capacity building, a lot of exposure activities that we do for our beneficiaries there. So those kind of fundings, particularly NREJ doesn't fund you for training and capacity building. It either funds you for this labor work or for at best material work. It doesn't have a component on training and capacity building work. So what we could at best propose is that at least 5 to 10% of entire budget could be there for provision of capacity building. Then I could say that doing scattered work on NREJ doesn't lead you to have much results. Rather, you could have a cluster approach where you could have contiguous villages there. Then you start your NRM work. Then the biggest challenge that we face in terms of NREJ in MP is to motivate a team of young professionals. You have a scattered, isolated place to locate it. Then people are very fresh. They don't have much experience on NREJ too also. So recruiting a multidisciplinary team, keeping their motivation aspect and keeping their training and all that requires a lot of insights, a lot of investment from AKRSP. That's what we could see, and that is why I could end. That's all.
Thank you, Janmejaya. May I now invite Shishi